We're live. Okay, welcome to International Master Alex Ostrovskiy. Did I get that right?
First try, perfect.
Let's go. I didn't even ask him before. I usually do, but I didn't this time. We are continuing our series on the 1000 GM player profiles, and we have Alex here today. He's an international master, a very strong player, and seeking his GM title. Welcome, Alex. How does it feel to be here and to be playing this upcoming 1000 GM event?
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited. I've never played. Very rarely play on the West Coast. I'm from New York, so this is going to be actually my first tournament ever in LA.
Wow.
I've been only 3 times, and both of those times came in the past like 6 months somehow. So lots of LA and lots of Los Angeles in my sort of travel plans recently. But yeah, it's exciting. I always like playing new tournaments, see some new faces, potentially new opponents. So I very much look forward to it.
All right. Well, I see some of Bobby Fischer's road in your future. You'll be out here playing tournaments all the time now because the West Coast has the best weather. Obviously, let's get started with our interview here, and let's start way back. Go, jump in the
Mhm.
time machine, and let's think about when you first started playing chess. What got you into chess, and when did you start?
Yeah, it's been a while. So I'm 26 years old now, but I've been playing for over 20 years. So I started. I think I played my first tournament when I was like 5 and change.
All
So
right.
I was a wee lad back then, and yeah, I got into it because my dad played a little bit. Like he played when he was a kid, and my grandpa, father's side, also played. And I actually was born in Moscow, so there's that rich tradition or culture of chess in this former Soviet Union. So yeah, it was just kind of something that was like casual in my family, and my dad's always been a huge fan, and I kind of picked it up from him, and yeah, it kind of took off. He took me to a tournament, we did some training together, and all of a sudden I started playing all the
Test
time.
one, test one,
That was
two.
21 years ago at this point. So now I'm here today.
Awesome. That's excellent. And I saw in your biography on your beautiful website, by the way. If
Thank you.
anybody watching hasn't checked out his website, he's got a whole timeline of his chess history. It's really cool. So I saw that you came from Russia, right?
Yeah, exactly. I started playing chess in the U.S. actually, but yeah, I was born in Russia. Immigrated here when I was 5 years old, and yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
You got it right.
Okay, so then what brought your family to New York?
Uh, it's a good question. Let me think back. Obviously, I was very young. I didn't
Yeah.
have much say in the decision back then, but I know it was something that it was in the making. Because actually it was kind of like we didn't all come at once. First, it was my great grandfather that came. I immigrated back in 2000 with my family in 2001.
Okay.
So I think it was like my great grandfather. He came in the 90s, as a lot of people did after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There was a
Right.
big immigration wave from there, and he came over to the U.S. And then I think my uncle and then my mom came by herself. And then I'm not privy exactly to the whole process, but it was like a drawn out procedure. And then eventually me and my dad made it over, and just why they do it. I think it's this a typical story for immigrants, just for better opportunities for themselves, for me. That was kind of like a big move off course for my family. They grew up in a whole different country, got educated there, had jobs there, careers there, and they packed it all up, and I think it's worked out quite well.
Yeah.
Thankful for them doing that, of course, for me. Although back then, I was just happy to be on the airplane.
Yeah. Had you started playing chess before you moved, or?
No, just here. I mean, after shortly after we moved. Although my dad claims that he tried to show me when I was like 2, 3 years old, and like apparently I could set up some of the pieces, but beyond that, I mean, I'm not even sure if I could do that. Maybe he's embellishing a little bit, but beyond that, yeah, I didn't. I think it took me until I was a mature 5-year-old that I could actually learn the rules a little more.
Right, right. Okay. So then, where did you discover chess? Because New York is big, and I mean, New York was the center of chess until basically St. Louis came around, until St. Louis became big with the St. Louis Chess Club. But I mean, it's still one of the main centers of chess in the United States. So where did you start playing?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I saw my dad actually just playing online, like he was at home on the computer, maybe playing something he'd been watching, and I came over and I was interested, and so I started a little bit at home, and so at first it was just I wasn't playing anyone except my dad, and then back then actually I still had family abroad, and my grandparents they still live back in Russia. And as I mentioned, my grandfather played, so my dad thought it would be fun for me and my grandpa to play over email. So I would email him a move, he would email me back a move, and I
Oh,
believe
wow.
we played 2 games. Yeah, it was kind of like we kept in touch, and I played him. It's like correspondence chess, which
Right.
is kind of played back in the old days by snail mail. So we played like that. And then eventually my dad brought me to, we kind of started expanding. He's like, all right, like, he's actually into this. Like maybe I'll take him to a tournament or something. And I went to this chess club called the White Rook, which is where there were a lot of kids. This was in Brooklyn, where I grew up. And so I kind of started playing a little bit more informally there. And yeah, as you mentioned, the great thing about New York, we have a rich chess culture, lots of institutions here that can support chess players. So I started playing some tournaments in chess in the schools, which is still around, a very important program to support young chess players. And then I made my way to the Marshall Chess Club, which is our, of course, historic chess club we have here in New York. So yeah, kind of went through the ranks like that, just utilizing all these opportunities we had here, and that was all done very quickly. I would say in the span of like a year, I had already hit all those different spots.
Awesome, awesome. And then who was your first coach?
Well, it was my dad, of course.
Oh,
My
right.
dad's a pretty strong player. I mean, he played, like I mentioned, when he was young, and kind of like in the Boy Scouts of sorts. Not called the Boy Scouts, but if we can kind of call that. And
Yeah.
that's where he learned to play there. And he was a pretty good player, but he kind of stopped in his teenage years. He's like an expert level player,
Okay.
so he definitely could show me a thing or two. But I went to this establishment called White Rook. There they had like different coaches there, so where I learned from them. Michael Katz was one of them, who was a grandmaster of checkers, but chess wasn't as strong, but he was a great coach.
All
He
right.
he kind of he got me into it, and yeah, a lot of those guys helped me there. And then yeah, so that was the first. I had many coaches growing up at various points of my progression, but when I started out, it was my dad and these guys at the White Rook who got me started.
So I've never heard any chess player say that one of their
Mm-hmm.
first coaches was a grandmaster checkers player. I mean, I started playing
Yeah.
checkers actually
Mm-hmm.
before chess, and I won like some Boys and Girls Club state contest in checkers, and then my sponsor said, "Oh, you should play chess." I'm like, "Oh, this is a fun game," and then the
Mm-hmm.
rest is history. But then, okay, so as you're working your way up through the ranks as a player, there was a point where you definitely outperformed your dad, right?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't. I think a lot of stories are. Oh, like I started playing, and then within a month, I was beating my dad, and that's when my dad knew like I got to do something. It's not the same for me because, like I mentioned, my dad's actually quite a capable player in his own right. And when I started playing, he started playing too because he was taking me to all these chess tournaments. He was like, "All right, let me play some chess." He hadn't played chess in 20 plus years or something like that,
Right.
and he decided, I'll start playing it. He was very rusty, and then but he was pretty decent. And I started. I wasn't necessarily better than him when I could beat him, right? Like I could pull off the upset,
Yeah.
but I think I became better than him. When I was around maybe 10, 11 years old, off the top of my head, which sounds very young, but at that point I'd already been playing for around like 5 years or something like that. So and but yeah, even when I was better than him, he could still take games off me. So it wasn't for a while until we ceased any of those competitive battles.
Yeah, and were you striving to beat him at all, or did you have a competitive relationship with him at
Um,
all?
I don't recall. Like, I mean, I just want to beat my opponents, you know.
Right.
So I don't remember having that drive. You know, maybe if you asked me at the time, I'd be like, this is my number, but I definitely don't remember it. I think it was just I was playing lots of tournaments, competing uh, open events, scholastic events, you know, going for different titles, city, state, national. So I think I was just trying to do my best there, trying to win those, and you know, dad could come later, you know, in terms of competitiveness.
Right, and right. So now to fast forward to your skills now. I mean, looking at your quick stats on your website, you had a peak rating of 2560, which is incredible for the national rating, and you have a one grandmaster norm, and your peak rating was 2535, correct, FIDE, or
The peak FIDE was 24
oh,
53 or 8 or so.
68.
Or 68, yeah, I think live it was 68 at one moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Have you broke 2500 yet?
No, I have not.
Okay.
That was yeah, that's one of the requirements. Yeah, it's yeah,
Right.
working on it.
Right, of course. And you've been ranked as high as 50 nationally. You're a three-time New York State champion. You won your first title at age 14. What did that feel like to win the New York State championship at age 14?
That was pretty cool, to be honest. That was kind of like my breakout year in a way. I remember I became a master at 13, a national master at the age of 13. But I remember I was kind of stuck. So before master, you know, there's the expert title, and I was kind of stuck in that range for what felt like a really long time. I think it was like 2 years.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're a young player progressing, if you're stuck for a very extended period of time, it's a little foreign and it's a little difficult. So I remember I really struggled to get over that kind of hump. And then I became I got through that barrier. I got to the master title at late 13. I was almost 14. But then when I was 14, yeah, like I won the New York State title. As I mentioned, that was a really great experience. It came down to this like crazy last round game that I had to win. And then when I won at the time, I was actually the youngest ever winner in history for the title. So it was like a 130-year-old tournament. So they ran a little article in the New York Times. So I got a little bit of press coverage.
Wait,
so
you even beat Fisher?
I didn't beat. I believe I beat his
Age.
either his record or something like that. I mean, it was 14 was pretty young. There were a couple of people who won it at 16.
Wow.
Again, this is a long time at this point, and that record has actually been broken by other promising young players since then. But at that time, yeah, it was a record. It was a great achievement for me to get that victory. And like I said, it was just a breakout year in general. I added a ton of points to my rankings, and I kind of really made serious headway in my game.
Awesome. So let's skip forward to the international master title then. Did that? I mean, it seems like your chess accelerated very quickly. I mean, you're only 26, and how long have you had the IM title for?
Yeah, for a while, for 9 years now.
So you got it when you were
17, yeah,
wow.
Before my senior year of high school. So, yeah.
So that seems like you kind of breezed to it. Did it feel that way, or?
I mean, in hindsight, maybe, right? If you kind of look at it like that. At the time, like I said, I had this breakout when I was 13, 14. When I was 14, I became a FIDE master, which is the title below international master. And then to get the international master title, I needed to get the rating requirement and the norm requirement. And I remember I got my first norm in 2011, so I was 15. And then my next couple of norms came 2 years later. So it was a process at the time. Like, it wasn't like I was just kind of winning left and right. Like, it took a little bit to do it. But I remember when I got my last norms, I remember I had the summer schedule to play 5 consecutive tournaments, and I needed 2 more international master norms. And my first 2 events, I came very close, like half point more, I would have got it. So I was very close. And then the next 2 events, I got it. And then I got it, like that was my 3rd norm. And then I got another one in the 5th tournament. So when I kind of got that level, like I really had it. And like I definitely, you described it as breezing through. And I guess when it came to getting that final push, it was, I mean, not easy, of course, but it was kind of like a rocket ship. But I became an international master then when I was 17. And I kind of as I mentioned, that was before my senior year of high school. So when that started, I kind of took a little bit of a step back from studying, from playing,
Right.
and of course that wasn't great for my game. And then I went to college. So after I got this title, I kind of you know uh, didn't necessarily pursue it, the Grandmaster title right away, full throttle as maybe I could have or should have. And so I kind of stalled out a bit, even went down in my level at that time.
Yeah, I mean that's common. I was actually going to ask that
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like there's a little gap in your resume as far as a player. Um, when did you're now a coach? When did you start coaching?
Yeah, I mean, you got that right. That's kind of where it all started intersecting. So yeah, when I was like 18 years old, like I said, I started college. At first, I started teaching a little bit at that time. There's a lot of teaching opportunities in New York. There's a lot of great Scholastic programs, a lot of great Scholastic players, a lot of adult players. So just a good market for people who want to learn and get better. And at the time, I started. I went to college. I was focusing on my studies there, and at the same time, I started teaching just a little bit, like. Just get a little bit of lunch money. And so I started around the time I was 18. But it turned out that it was actually, I actually quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed teaching. I mean, I'll be honest, I definitely had some first initial experiences that weren't so great that I didn't enjoy, but I also had plenty that were really enjoyable. I
Yeah.
also started working at a middle school, IS 318, where I still actually work to this day.
Wow.
That was one of my first jobs, and that's a school that perhaps you're familiar with. Is They were featured in the documentary Brooklyn Castle.
Yeah, I was going to
Uh,
ask you that.
yeah, I guess I'm getting ahead of the questions, but
No, no,
yeah,
no. It's
yeah,
fine. It's fine.
yeah. So it's if anyone hasn't seen it, the documentary itself is a pretty. It's funny is because I actually know all the players in it because I'm
Yeah.
the same age as those guys, so I know them very well. But it's a pretty inspiring story about the school and the chess team and how they compete against all these other programs. And at the time, a lot of the members of the chess team were, underprivileged, and they won a hell of a lot of these titles, and it's just a really feel good movie. And they have a great team and great staff. So. I was always like the enemy of sorts to that team because I was in a different school competing against them. But then I started working there, and yeah, I'm still there to this day. So
That's great.
anyway, yeah, like you said, like I started teaching around, then it kind of grew into more and more of from a side thing to a main thing, and it's what I do full time nowadays uh, for my livelihood,
Did
teaching chess.
did Brooklyn Castle do anything for your career? Like the movie? I mean, the movie itself, if people don't know, inspired a lot of scholastic programs in teaching. It was a very inspirational movie and a well done documentary about this school in inner city New York, and these kids that were really competing their hearts out, and these teachers that were really pushing hard and giving everything they could to actually get these kids the best education, not just chess wise, and but also academically as well. Did it impact your career at all as a coach?
Well, when it came out, I was I think I might have still been in high school, to be honest. So
Wow.
it was the timeline wasn't. I was the same age as those guys in the
Right.
movie, like I said. So I mean, it probably maybe it had an impact. Like you said, it did inspire a lot of programs, and I know a lot of people I've witnessed it, come up to the different instructors we have
Right. Right.
at 13. They're like, hey, like I saw you're from the movie, like I love the movie. So it obviously inspired, I think,
So
a lot of programs and players. So in the long run, I think it did have a ripple effect to help my
so
help
you
my
know
career.
Justice Williams then, right?
Of course, I've played Justice. We both, I'm 2 years older than him, so we're
Okay.
pretty close in age, and we've played maybe in the excess of 15 games over our lives, and we're going to be playing again pretty soon, actually,
What's
at
your
a different
record
tournament
now?
as well.
I want to hear it. What's the record? Do you know?
Uh, Off the top of my head, I think I'm up 8-3 in decisive
Oh,
games,
oh,
with
Justice got to
some
step it
draws.
up.
But a lot of those games,
Yeah.
were when we were kids. So we
Right.
actually played last month, and the game was I escaped with just barely escaped for a draw. So I'm sure he has something to say about that score, and he'll try to catch up.
Yeah,
If
of course.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Well, that's a challenge for Justice right there. Okay, let's move on to your current career. I mean,
Hmm.
you definitely have a thriving coaching career, and you have a big future ahead of you there. But why would you go back to get the GM title? Because GM title is good, it's great, but it's not necessary for coaching.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's all personal ambition. I like I said, I became an IM at 17. For the next 4 years, I kind of was playing more casually. I was still playing. Like, don't get me wrong, I
Yeah.
wasn't like I didn't forget how the pieces moved, but I wasn't. I was playing for purely enjoyment, and my results kind of like so. Like sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but ultimately no progress. And actually, when I was around 21, 22, I was still in the middle of my academic career, but I made a decision that I actually wanted to return back to chess. I want to go for the GM title, and I want to play more seriously. I think a lot of chess players can sympathize with this. If you've been playing a game, like I've been playing the game for 20 years, and a lot of other chess players have as well, and or more. And to reach the level of master or above, you really have to put in a lot of time into the game. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, it's I want to finish what I started, right? Like you said, I don't necessarily okay, maybe it could be helpful, like, hey, I'm a grandmaster, but at the end of the day, like it's not the primary factor whatsoever. It's a personal goal, personal ambition.
Right.
I've done it before where I've kind of taken time off. I came back, I took it very seriously, and led me to get my first grandmaster norm, and I picked up a bunch of rating. But then I had to go back to college, which I finished up around 2 years ago. At this point, I wrapped it all up. And of course, it was all the complications with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been kind of a tricky several years. And I want to get back into it, and I want to get into it as serious as I was when I got my first Grandmaster norm. It was difficult. It was a grind, but I enjoyed it. And there's no better feeling really than putting in the work and then actually seeing it pay off. Especially in a game as difficult as chess, where you're playing a bunch of other competitors who are doing the same exact thing, right? So it's like you can work really hard, but so is the other guys. So
Yeah.
nothing's guaranteed. It's tough, and that's why I want to do it. It's a very personal goal and an accomplishment that I would love to achieve. And
So
that's what I'd like to do.
So how are you going to balance your coaching career with your training? Because it's going to take a many hours a day to train.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your plan to balance all of that?
Less coaching.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
You got to make sacrifices,
Right.
and it's a lot of my. I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of fantastic students, not just in terms of their chess skills, but just in terms of their character. And lots of students I've been working with for many years at this point. Students I've been working with for 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, very
Yeah.
long-term relationships. And of course, those mean a lot to me in terms of what we've done over the years and the relationships we've built. So it's difficult. It's difficult because you can't have it all. You
Yeah,
can't have
I
you can't do all the coaching, can't do all the chess playing and studying. Not to mention, that's only two things we talked about. There's
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
have I can't just disappear for months at end. My girlfriend might not be my girlfriend anymore if I do that. So
Go ahead and give her a shout out.
yeah, shout out to Moon. So she's along for the crazy ride. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, just have to make some kind of sacrifices, adjustments. It's you just can't. Maybe someone else. I can't have it all. I
Right.
realized, and I just need to cut back in some regards. Whether it's just cutting back in some work to focus on more travel, more studying, or other aspects of life. But yeah, just some things give and take. And then
Awesome.
and then just kind of got to go for the go for the glory. And then
Right.
once that's done, I can change it all up.
Okay, I want to get to the rapid fire Q&A, but first I do want to hear one more thing about what your training regimen is like. Can you walk us through a typical day in your training? What will you do when you first start? By per hour or per block of time.
Yeah, sure. So when I do my training, there's it's not like I do the same thing every time. Try to change it up, work on different parts of the game. But I'll give a very general overview of like a relatively normal day. I'll usually start with a little bit of warm up, just do like around like 30 minutes of rapid fire puzzles, let's call it that way, just tactical training, just kind of stay sharp and get into a little bit of a mind frame of calculation. And then once that's done, I'll move on to some more in-depth study. Sometimes they may be a theoretical study, just studying some recent trends or working on my openings, or just kind of mastering some repertoire that I've been working on. These things are very time consuming. So that could be like a process that, I might even focus on hopefully on a good day, like for several hours in a row. So that's an important one. I also like to utilize a lot of different, recently, I like to utilize a lot of different training materials, lots of books have been coming out, lots of resources in the past years have been coming out that I think are fantastic. So I will go into one of them, either working on some like really tough puzzles that will force me to think for like, 30 minutes on one puzzle or something difficult like that. Or I might just,
can you name one book that you're currently working on?
Sure. This is not the one that I mentioned, but I recently picked up Thinking Inside the Box by Jacob Aagaard, who is considered to be one of the premier chess coaches and authors in the world.
Yes.
And I actually had the opportunity to briefly meet him recently.
Awesome.
At a different tournament, and someone asked him, what do you think is your greatest work? And he named that one. So I was like, I'll start reading it. So I just got it when I got home.
All right,
so that's
it's
just
on my list now too. Then
there you go. Yeah, and it doesn't disappoint. So awesome. as expected. So yeah, just a mix of tactics, calculation, reading these different books by very knowledgeable authors who hopefully provide you more information, more knowledge. So just, depending on the day, just try to mix it up. And ideally ideally I always thought that if I could just study consistently 4 hours a day, that would be great, but life gets in the way. So some days,
right.
might have to, just only do, 30 minutes or something like that, just squeeze it in. And other days, maybe a little freer, I can go for longer. So it hasn't been as smooth as I want to be, but that's like why I mentioned earlier, got to make some adjustment sacrifices so that we want to get on this 4 hour a day schedule. I know people, study 8 hours a day, it's crazy stuff like that. But for me, I always thought like, if I can do like an honest, strong 4 hours, that's kind of my goal. Like, and then,
right.
then I'll reach the heights I want to reach.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us that insight. Let's move on to some fun rapid fire questions. Just give me a few word answer and just have fun with it.
Sure.
Let's start with the first one, one that your fans are all waiting to hear. Who is your favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? I'll tell you this. I've been recently watching The Boys. I don't know if you're familiar with that show. It's on Amazon. It's kind of like an anti-superhero show. So I'll have to go something esoteric from there. If you watch The Boys, you'll know. I don't know, Butcher, even though he's not a superhero, he's kind of is in the show. So that is just a show that just kicks ass. So I like that one a lot.
All right. What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Maybe Inception or Forrest Gump. I've watched both of those maybe at least 5 times each.
Okay.
Okay,
it's clear you're a movie lover if you mention those movies. What if you could have one actor play you in the movie of your life, who would it be? It can be anybody too.
Yeah.
You can go from
anyone historically. Anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to choose some historical. Yeah. You want Fisher to play you in a movie.
That I never thought of that one. I don't know if you know this. Maybe you said you saw my website, so you saw I used to have long hair, used to have a man bun.
Yeah.
So got Jason Momoa, right? He's got the long hair.
There you go.
So sounds and no one will tell the difference, right?
All right, that's great. Do you watch any other sports other than chess?
Yeah, I'm a big basketball fan.
Okay.
I play basketball. I watch basketball.
What's your favorite team? Oh, well.
I'm from New York. So
Knicks or no?
It's. I'll be very honest. I'm a big fan. Like I really follow all the teams. So it's hard for me to say if I have a favorite team. But I root for New York to win, but it's not so fun. But it depends. Like I watch almost all the games to some extent. So different night, different team, basically.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Let's see. What would you say is your greatest achievement to date in chess?
Greatest achievement in chess. Oof.
Or I would say, what's your
Yeah.
just best tournament you think you've ever played?
Well, that's a much easier one. So when I got my Grandmaster norm in 2018, that was by far it's to date. I've been close a couple of times, but that's my only Grandmaster norm.
Awesome.
And not only that, but the level of my play I thought was as good as it gets that tournament. I earned all my points, no lucky, anything like that, which is, part of the game. That was just all fair and square.
What did you
and
score?
If anything, I scored a 6.5 out of 9.
All right.
Which was the desired score.
Nice.
But it was good memories there. Hopefully second one in LA. Oh.
All right. Okay. So one more thing before we go and take a look at one of your best games.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say to your fans?
To my fans, first of all, any fans out there, thanks so much for supporting me and rooting for me. So I'm going to do my best to deliver. I do know some people who follow my games when I'm at these tournaments. So I'm looking forward to playing some good games. I'm looking forward to staying out of time trouble if I can, because I know they don't like that when I'm down on the clock. And so hopefully don't give them any heart attacks. And let's get some wins. That's keep it simple.
Let's get some wins. I love it. Okay, so let's switch over and take a look at one of your favorite games. Go ahead and share when you are ready.
Sure. Here we go.
Okay, and give us
all right. How's that look?
Great. It looks fantastic. Give us a background on this game.
Yeah, so this was a game that I played with the black pieces, and my opponent was a very good friend of mine, and also a very strong player. His name is Alexander Lenderman.
Mm-hmm.
And I've played this guy a bunch of times. He's helped me. He's beaten me a bunch of times. He's helped me a lot with my game over the years. We're both from New York, and so he's a bit senior than me, but just a lot of interaction, a lot of crossover. And he's a grandmaster. He's one of the top players in the U.S., many-time U.S. champion, U.S. championship participant. And this tournament itself wasn't a particularly high-stakes tournament or anything like that. It was actually a pretty funny tournament we have called the Insanity. It's literally called the Insanity Tournament. And it's actually gotten a little less insane, unfortunately. At the time we played it in 2016, it was a 10-round rapid tournament. You played 10 rounds from 9 to 9, I believe, or 10 to 10 in the morning to night, and you just played 10 games in a row that were 30 minutes per side. The tournament used to actually be held overnight. So it used to actually start, I believe, at 9 p.m. and it would go until 9 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And, I never got to play it because when that was happening, I was very young. And then when I got older, when I actually could, do it, they stopped doing that. But it actually had a lot. I remember it had like a lot of participants. So people kind of like that crazy aspect of it. So I would have definitely done it if they still had it. But this one was during the day, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
so it's like
anyway,
mild insanity.
Yeah. I mean, Insanity. It's definitely lost some of the accuracy for the name. But at the time of this game, it was round 8, so we're getting to the end of this marathon, and Alex was just killing everyone. He was like 6.5 out of 7, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So he was just in clear first, and I was.
Was he the highest rated player in the tournament?
Yeah. So he's rated, as you can see here, 27-26 at the time of the game. That's his national rating. So
yeah,
I mean that's obviously a serious number. And I don't remember any points. I believe I had 5 out of 7, so I wasn't out of it, but I was really behind him. And I needed to win. So so without further ado, I'll show how the game proceeded.
All right.
So I was playing black. He opened with a D4. I played D5. So it's the Queen's Gambit with C4, E6, Knight C3. And since I needed to win, I wanted to try to play something aggressive, try to play something non-standard. So I played this move, C6. This is what's called the triangle system. Pretty unimaginative name, but you build a little triangle with your pawns.
Yeah, triangle
so exactly, triangle Slav here. Yeah. And he plays, very natural move, Knight F3. Obviously, he was familiar with the setup, being the level of player that he is. And, I do this very risky strategy where I haven't developed any of my pieces, right? He has both his knights out. I have nothing developed. I'm just moving pawns. but I have an extra one. So I'm going to try to be greedy and see if I can get away with it. He plays E3. I play B5. So again, only pawns. I only move the pawns. I'm defending my pawn on C4. He counters my B pawn, and I bring my first piece out of the game. Now my bishop is pinning his knight so that it prevents the threat on B5. He unpins. And by the way, this is still all theory. We actually knew quite a bit, both me and him, about this variation, as I will explain in a moment. So he goes bishop D2. I play A5. It's a funny looking move, but the idea will become clear in a moment. For now, I'm just protecting my bishop, but this move also has a little bit more of an insidious idea. He takes on B5, which I haven't actually protected for the moment. So I get rid of this knight so that he can't recapture.
Right.
He takes, I take. And again, very peculiar position where I still have no pieces developed. No pieces developed, but an extra pawn. And now he plays B3. So this is a pretty strong move because if I take this pawn, which did not happen in the game, he's going to take here with check. And now he's capturing this pawn as well. And, I'm still behind in development and I have no extra material to show for it. So instead I played bishop B7. And I mentioned earlier that this move had a little bit of an insidious idea. And that was when he takes this pawn here. Now I can push B4. So this pawn supports the B4 push. He moves back. I play bishop B2, knight F6, bishop D3. And we're just going to fast forward a move here. Yeah. And this is actually one of, I think, off the top of my head at least, one of the craziest openings you can get in chess. This is called the node boom variation of the triangle Slav. And I was really, really stoked to get this on the board because, as I mentioned, I really needed a win. And I needed to play something where, he's playing white. I can't have him just playing super solid or, kind of squeezing me and using his grandmaster skills to kind of grind me down. I wanted something really unbalanced. And this is exactly what we got on the board here. I have two connected pass pawns on the queen side. He has a massive central presence. He has also got these really strong bishops. So it's a very unbalanced position where both sides have their advantages. So someone's going to win, basically. Might not be me, but someone's going to do it.
Can you spell the name of the variation real quick? Just so I can.
Yeah, Node Boom, Noteboom.
Okay.
I believe it's named after a Dutch player, Daniel Nodeboom. I mean, I'm sure that's how you pronounce it because it's Dutch, but it's just for us, it's just written Nodeboom. Sounds good. All right, so it's move 14, but believe it or not, the opening theory is just starting. Like white has a lot of moves here. I believe it's like rook E1, queen C2, and also knight D2, which is the move that Alex played, which is one of the more, I think, one of the better moves for white here. The idea of this move is that, first of all, white prepares to launch this pawn of the board and also prepares E4. So white's really just trying to use this massive central presence. I play queen C7. He plays F4. And now I play a little trick on him with A4. Now, the point of this move is that, well, I would love to push these pawns, ideally to make queens. But it looks like A4 is not possible because he has rook A4. But now this little queen C7 move, it allows me to play queen C6. That hits the rook, that hits the pawn, and he's losing. Right. So he didn't fall for that, sadly. He goes rook B1. So his idea is that if I want to push this pawn, he can now shift the bishop backwards.
Right.
I do a little bit of development. I bring the rook out to oppose his queen. He gets out of the way. And now I play queen D6. A little bit of a weird move, but my idea was that I wanted to create some pressure on this D file. So for example, this is a little sharp, but let's say he makes like a random move. Like obviously he wouldn't go here, but just to illustrate, I can consider playing the move knight C5 here. And the point is that if he takes the knight, because I have this battery with the queen and rook, I can take his bishop and I would be doing very well. So he plays bishop A1 instead, opening up this rook. I push my pawn and he plays bishop C3. And it's actually move 20 of the game. But at this moment, we started with 25 minutes. I believe he had spent less than 30 seconds here. And that's because he actually knew all this. He actually had this this whole idea kind of prepared or in his knowledge bank. So wow. Yeah, he really knew his stuff here. Wow. I was already kind of on my own here, but I didn't mind because like I said, I got in the type of position that I thought I could definitely use to my advantage. So I get my queen out of the way here. I wanted it to be kind of eyeballing his king. He moves his king out of the way. And now I play a little retreating move. Looks a little strange because I just brought this knight out, but I figured, well, I don't really see where I can put this knight. I'm going to move it back, and maybe in the future, I'm going to try to reposition it and then get it into his camp. He plays c5. I retreat my queen. Now he plays e4. So really, we have this huge battle. He's got these pawns. I got these pawns. Who's going to make it? So I play knight c6 as planned, trying to bring my knight out, this time with a threat. He plays queen e3. I played bishop a6. So this bishop here felt a little bit jammed up by the traffic on the board. So I offered him this trade. He accepted it. We do the trade. He goes knight c4. And here I come up with, I think, a very, very strong game. I really like this idea that I used here. And again, it's a big battle between, am I going to be able to use these guys here, or is he just going to roll me in the center? Now, for the time being, these pawns are frozen. He's done a great job kind of corralling them with his pieces. I can't really move them. So I decided to change strategies a little bit here. I'm like, all right, if I can't push my pawns, let me try to make your life harder and make sure you can't move your pawns. So first I harass this queen. Obviously, the queen has this role of protecting this pawn. He moves away to g3 to hit my knight.
Right. And
he might have underestimated or potentially missed my idea here. I said, you're going to have this knight because I'm just going for your pawns. So I snap on d4. He takes my knight. I take on c5. He takes and I take. So I've actually sacrificed the piece here, only for 2 pawns. So yeah, not really a fair trade, numerically speaking. But I thought, hey, if I get rid of his central pawns and I get rid of some of his pieces, that's going to make my passed pawns all that much stronger. He moves his knight out of the way. I move my queen. He threatens a little checkmate here, which I see. I defend that. And now I create an escape square for my king just to make sure there's no back rank shenanigans. He retreats his knight, trying to go for a fork, potentially. I get out of the way. He moves back. And now we get to the most fun part of the game. So he's up this piece. But as I mentioned, my whole strategy was I just want to try to use these pawns. They're pretty close to promoting. So the strategy is clear. Let's push it. So I push this guy. He gives me a check. And now he swings this knight around. So he came up with this idea. He was like, okay, you can have your fun over here with your pawns. I'm going to go at your king. You have all these pieces on the side. He's got this rook here. This knight's coming in the game. Potentially this queen's coming in. So he's trying to create some nasty threats. Also, at this point in the game, if I recall correctly, I had around 2 minutes. Wow. So things were, he had a bit more, but things were getting tense. So I push. I'm just like, all right, let's make these queens. He goes for this check. And I remember I was calculating here. I was like, okay, can I move my king up the board? Because if I take with a pawn, I get a checkmate.
Yeah.
So we don't want that.
Right.
So I was like, can I move my king up? And it looks obviously crazy. You know, I'm just bringing this king all the way up the board. I thought I could do this. But then I was like, you know what? Let's keep my king safe. Let's play. Yeah, exactly.
You sacked the queen here.
I sacked the queen. I gave him the queen.
Let's go.
I was like, all right.
That's interesting.
So he takes. Yeah. So I was down a piece. And I sacrificed my queen for the night. So now I'm down a clean queen. But I got these pawns, so I play a2.
Yeah.
So I'm threatening to take. He goes rook f1. I make a queen. I'm like, all right, we got it back. He takes. He's continuing his attack. Somewhat careful here because, for example, let's say I promote another queen. He might have some like wacky stuff here, like rook check. Oh, wow. And then let's say I take. Then he gets pawn check. And, I take. Wow. He gets queen check.
Oh,
and yeah. Well, I don't. Maybe he doesn't quite have mate because this rook is pinned.
Rook is pinned. Yeah.
But at the very least, he has a draw, and it's kind of funny because I have all this material here, but it's completely useless in defending my king. But at this point, I saw this. I was like, oh, maybe he has a draw there.
Winning at this point?
I am winning here, and that's why I was like, you know what? I don't want this perpetual. I'm going to try to beat him. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to sack my second queen.
Oh,
so that's the second queen sacrifice of the game.
Yeah, that's a nice
He takes it. I make another queen.
Okay, that makes sense.
He brings it back.
That makes sense.
I'm winning here, of course, with extra rook, but I sack another queen. I'm like, you know what? You can have all 3 of my queens. And then he takes, and after rook a4, there's no way to prevent the back rank. Exactly.
Wow.
And he resigned. So, yeah, this was maybe not my most important win, I have to say, but it was definitely, I think, one of my favorite games. I mean, I don't really know too many examples of someone sacrificing 2 queens, let alone 3 queens. So I always like this game. And
also to outplay Lenderman in a rapid game, right?
Yeah, and of course Lenderman's a very strong
Super
player.
strong player.
He still won this tournament, by the way. Yeah, but I did get second. I did get second.
It's
He got
great.
8.5, and I got 8 out of 10.
What
So,
was the turning point in this game?
I think throughout the game, if we kind of go back after the opening phase, and as I mentioned, up until this moment, he was kind of in his prep, and I, knew a thing or two about the position too. This is very complicated. Both sides have their advantages. I mean, objectively, probably white is a bit better, but it's very messy. And I believe when I got this knight sacrifice on the board, I think this already kind of gave me an easier game to play, even though I was down this knight. My pawns are so strong here. So, this was a type of game where there are other reasons, even though it was a rapid game, I was still pretty happy with it because it's not really obvious where white really went wrong. It's not like, oh, this is a clear blunder right here. I mean, of course, the computer will point out the inaccuracies, but I'm sure Alex, here he didn't feel like he played some horrible game or anything like that. And it's always not just this game, but in general, it's always a pleasure when you win a game and it's through sheer skill, so to speak. And it's like both opponents did tried hard, played hard, and and there was a deserving winner. So yeah, I think when I did this piece sacrifice, he's not losing here, I think. But it is very tricky for him.
Is his plan to reroute the knight to g5 just a bad plan?
Yeah. That was definitely too slow. I think he overestimated. I mean, to be fair, his position is pretty tough here. I mean, my heavy pieces are extremely active.
Right.
And again, these pawns are coming quickly. But
and the rooks are passive for him.
Yeah. The rooks are. That's why he tried to turn it around with this counterplay.
Right.
And and especially like I mentioned, I have like 2 minutes. He's going to try to create a difficult situation for me. He's going to try to go for checkmate, see if I miscalculate, make some mistake, make some blunder. So I think practically speaking, this made sense what he did. Unfortunately, it just didn't work. So yeah, it was a fun game. Again, I am good friends with Alex, and he's beaten me, quite a lot. So to take one off him is always I'm always happy to do that as a little bit of a step-by-step revenge process. But yeah, so this was probably, like I said, one of my favorite games. It's a fun game to show, fun game to play.
Yeah, what's your record against Alex generally?
Well, again, I think he's 6-7 years older than me,
right?
And we played a lot growing up, so he's really punished me a lot during those. It's something like it might be like 20-3, like something really gruesome. So he's really gone. But in the recent years, to be fair, ever since I was a international master, so it's not so bad. But he's one of the top players for a reason, and he has that score against me and other players too.
Right.
So
all right.
Again.
I think we're running out of time for the famous game today.
Sure.
Let's switch back. Let's stop the screen share and we'll switch back and just kind of wrap up the conversation. But since we didn't have time to get to it, what is your favorite historical game?
I thought about this question a little bit when you mentioned it earlier, and it's a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I don't really have just one, so to speak. I mean, it's hard for me to pick one. I mean, I will first. Yeah, I will mention one game just because I actually gave a whole training session last week, and I had all these different materials. And one of the games that I showed, I really liked this game too. It was a game, Aronian against Kramnik from the Candidates Tournament in 2018, maybe, or roughly.
Yeah, and, I was there.
You were there.
Oh,
okay.
I was there. Yeah, that game was.
So you know which one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the best games ever played in the Candidates Tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, it was to beat. Kramnik's one of my favorite players, and that was kind of an interesting stage of his career. Right before retirement, where he was just kind of no holds barred, just playing super aggressively, and he produced a lot of very great games. But that was kind of like to do it against such an amazing opponent and such a top level sporting event. I would say that's one of my favorites. But
there's
a
about
lot.
That game. If we can linger on that game for a second,
sure.
Is that he said after the game is that he had prepared that position for, I believe, another tournament. I couldn't remember if it was for a game against Carlsen or if I couldn't remember. He prepared it for someone specific, but he just had it in his memory banks. He just had that game, that position ready, that opening ready, and he just sprung it on Neroni and kind of in the moment. He didn't. I mean, I'm sure he prepared a little bit beforehand, but he just kind of made the decision to use his giant memory bank preparation. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I mean, it was like not like something he had looked at recently either. It was like, I prepared this like 10 years ago, not 10 for that specific idea, but it was like, it was just laying around from like 6 years ago or something like that. Yeah. And that's actually, I'm sure you've seen that happen with other of these top players. Like, oh yeah, I had this idea since 2007. Like, I know it's just first time I got to use it. So it's pretty funny when that happens. But yeah, that's a great game. It's great, which one, that game too, because modern classic, as they like to say.
Yeah, well, I was in the press room watching the game, and Grishuk wandered up there and was just standing right in front of my chair. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just stand next to Grishuk and talk to him about the game. And Grishuk was just rattling off lines. That actually Kramnik played in the game. He was just like rattling off lines. And it's just incredible to see just how strong those players are. If you, I want to ask one more question, because you seem like you're also a lover of chess culture and top level chess. If you could beat one top level player, who would you want to beat?
Well, I mean, I think everyone has the same answer. Right? It has to be Magnus,
Go ahead,
right? I mean, that'll be immortal,
right.
Like, and it'll be everywhere.
Well, you can draw him like Vidit.
Oh yeah, with the 3 moves. Yeah. The speaking, I have had the opportunity to play some top players. I played Gadakomsky when he was number 10 in the world. Wow. I think he was like 2760, and that was actually, I drew him. Tough game. I was like 16 years old. I remember I drew the game, and obviously he's a legend in his own right. And after the game, I was like, I tried my luck. I was like, you want to look over it? But he graciously declined, which I assumed he would. But, I thought I'd take a shot at it. And I also played Pintala Harikrishna once.
Oh, wow.
Who's back then he's very strong. He was 2670 or 80. Not like he's like 2750 or 60 even afterwards. But I actually I took him down. This was when I was 15. So those are all a long time ago.
Oh wow!
But
that's a good notch on your resume there. Yeah.
That's one of my better ones too. But I mean, it would have to be Magnus. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
All right. Well, before we leave, let's just thank 1000 GM because they're sponsoring this interview and they're sponsoring the tournaments in general. And can you tell me, one thing, or just tell me what it means to you to have events like this to play that 1000 GM is putting on, because on the West Coast we don't get norm tournaments all the time like this. Maybe in the Bay Area, but in Los Angeles it's been a while. We've had a drought, so we're very excited that they're coming back. What does it mean to you to play a 1000 GM event, and then if we can get them going every weekend, what will that mean to you?
Well, of course, it goes without saying that I really want to thank 1000 GM, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come out and play and the invite. It's a fantastic endeavor for chess players, like you mentioned, on the West Coast in the community there, but just for the country in general. Historically, in the United States, we haven't had these tournaments give players an opportunity to go for titles for international master, for grandmaster, and historically we haven't. When I was growing up, I can tell you this for sure. We had barely any tournaments like this that gave opportunities to players.
Right.
And I think it's no coincidence that recently we have so many strong players and so many strong juniors, and so it's because of initiatives like this. And I think it's just going to continue in the future. So this is just fantastic. Gives players a chance to compete. It's going to be I think great for the players on the West Coast in California and LA, just to see that this is something that they can participate in. Hopefully in the future, it's going to be, I'm sure it'll give someone additional motivation, maybe it'll even push someone to pursue their chess goals or careers more full time. So just a great opportunity all around for ambitious players, for players around the country, for young players, to pursue their goals. And I hope if it's every weekend, then I'll move to LA. I'll
Awesome.
move out to the West Coast. And,
you heard it first here.
Yeah. And if I can play every weekend, I'll be the arbiter, the player, and the interviewer. So
Great.
We'll see.
All right. Well, I hope to talk to you again soon, Alex. Thank you for your time, and I wish you a really great first event. I hope you get that GM norm right away, so that you can have only one more left, and that you can get that title, because you seem to be quite a deserving player, and you definitely have the skills to do it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, and I look forward to being there. First of many, I hope.
All right. Have a nice day. Thank you.
All right.